Have you ever felt like something inside you is controlling you, even when you intend to do the opposite? Like a silent, invisible force shaping your choices, reactions, and words without your consent? This force isn't evil or mystical. It's human and deeply personal. It forms in childhood, fed by everything you were taught to suppress: your anger, sadness, misunderstood courage, sexuality, fears, and impulses to express or defend yourself. All the things you believed you had to hide to be loved or accepted. This force is called the shadow. Carl Jung didn't see the shadow as an inner monster. He saw it as a legitimate part of the psyche. Banished, yes, but full of life, energy, and truths you haven't faced. Here's the truth few dare to accept. The shadow doesn't vanish just because you pretend it's not there. It waits, watches, grows stronger, and when you least expect it, it takes control. Not as an external attack, but as attitudes, decisions, and emotions that seem to come from another part of you, a you that you swore you weren't. You judge others, criticize, get irritated by their actions, but often what you see in them is a reflection of what you haven't had the courage to face within yourself. Until you confront this, you'll remain trapped in an invisible cycle, driven by emotions you think you understand, but are actually acting behind the scenes in your unconscious. Integrating the shadow is for the strong, for those tired of blaming others, who understand that pointing fingers is easy, but looking in the mirror transforms. This video isn't a simple step-by-step or comfort for the ego. It's a call for those ready to truly grow, who know that running from pain only prolongs it, and that real emotional freedom begins when you stop running and listen to what your soul is trying to say. The shadow isn't what most people imagine. It's not just the bad side of your personality, not an inner demon to destroy or a curse to fight. Jung saw it as a vital part of the human psyche, a hidden territory holding all the aspects your ego, conditioned by society, family, and your own expectations, chose to hide. From childhood, you learned which behaviors were acceptable and which weren't. You smiled when you wanted to cry, stayed kind when you wanted to scream, suppressed your anger, ambition, fear, sensuality, or vulnerability. Everything that didn't fit the mask you were forced to wear was pushed into the basement of your mind. That basement, that collection of rejected pieces of yourself, is the shadow. But here's the truth few dare to accept. The shadow isn't just violent impulses or destructive desires. It also holds your creative strength, forgotten passion, stifled courage, and lost spontaneity. The shadow carries both your potential for destruction and transformation. Ignoring it is choosing to live a mutilated life. Integrating it is embracing the entirety of your existence. When you understand the shadow, you see that humans are not just light but also darkness. Denying that darkness is rejecting your own life force. The shadow holds the keys to self-knowledge, emotional growth, and true maturity. But those keys can only be claimed through the brutal courage to look within, without masks, excuses, or mercy. Without integrating the shadow, your psyche becomes unbalanced. Repressed energy turns corrosive, fueling anxiety, depression, outbursts of anger, compulsions, self-sabotage, and existential emptiness. An ignored shadow doesn't vanish. It finds more painful, destructive ways to show itself. This is where emotional projection comes in. When you don't recognize your shadow, your unconscious shows it to you through others, using them as mirrors. In the next part, we'll explore how this mechanism operates in your daily life, relentlessly revealing what you try hardest to hide from yourself. When you don't see what's inside you, the world becomes a mirror. Not a clear one, but a distorted one, filtered through your unconscious. Jung called this projection the process where the repressed contents of your psyche, your unrecognized shadow, are cast onto others. You don't see them in yourself, so your unconscious projects them outward. That's why others' behaviors bother you more than they should, triggering disproportionate, irrational, often inexplicable reactions. Emotional projection is brutally common, but rarely understood. You feel rage at someone for being arrogant, but deep down it's your own repressed need to assert yourself. You judge someone as selfish when you're the one swallowing desires and harboring resentment for never putting yourself first. You get irritated by people who express too much because you learned early that showing emotions is weakness. Others become the stage where your unconscious acts out everything you haven't dared to face within. Projection isn't a conscious choice. It's a psychic defense. The ego, to preserve itself, needs to keep its self-image intact. So everything that threatens that image, everything that contradicts the character you believe you are, is expelled into the world. You start seeing monsters in others, not realizing you're running from your own reflections. How many relationships have you destroyed because you didn't see that the problem wasn't the other person, but how they triggered your shadow? How many times have you distanced yourself from someone without explaining why, just because their presence made you feel something you couldn't name? How often have you hated someone who, unknowingly, embodied what you fought to keep buried? Projection turns the world into a battlefield, but that war is within you. It blinds you, limits you, and stops you from growing. There's only one way to break this cycle. Take responsibility for your emotions. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, what exactly about this person bothers me so much, and why? This process isn't pleasant. It demands you abandon the comfortable victim role and take on the hard task of examining your soul. But this is where transformation begins. When you stop running and start listening to what your shadow's trying to say. If you're brave enough to face this discomfort, you'll find that the pain of projection is your psyche's invitation to something greater. In the next part, we'll explore what happens when you reject that invitation, when you spend your life ignoring your shadow and, without realizing it, become exactly what you condemn in others. Ignoring the shadow is like trying to control a fire by closing your eyes. You can pretend nothing's wrong, believe the problem isn't yours, or build theories to justify your blindness. But the fire keeps burning, and the more you refuse to see it, the more it consumes you. When you project your repressed aspects onto the world, you lose touch with your inner reality. You start fighting imaginary wars, seeing enemies where there are only reflections, battling in others what you secretly fear finding in yourself. What you don't understand or refuse to accept is that what you hate outside is silently shaping who you become inside. Jung said it clearly. Everything we don't face in our consciousness appears in our lives as fate. If you don't confront your repressed anger, it turns into resentment and passive aggression. If you deny your envy, it becomes silent bitterness. If you hide your ambition, it festers into frustration and self-pity. Gradually, you stop being who you think you are and become exactly what you swore to fight. This is how hypocritical moralists are born, publicly condemning the impulses they secretly live. This is how compulsive altruists emerge, over-sacrificing while feeding subterranean hatred for those who don't reciprocate. This is how good men and women become oppressors in their homes, jobs, and relationships, suffocated by the weight of what they never dared to integrate. You can spend your life running, justifying, pointing fingers outward. But the truth is relentless. What you reject in yourself doesn't disappear. It finds new masks to manifest, and the longer you ignore it, the stronger it gets. Until one day, there's no real difference between who you thought you were and what you despised most. The unintegrated shadow takes the wheel of your life and drives without your permission. It sabotages your relationships, destroys your dreams, drains your strength, and undermines every step you try to take towards something greater. And you, blinded by pride, keep blaming the world, not realizing the enemy was always within. But there is a way out, a path to stop this force from destroying you and start empowering you. A way to turn poison into medicine, hatred into self-knowledge, shame into personal power. That path begins with a conscious decision to integrate the shadow, to bring it into the light of awareness. In the next part, we'll dive into this transformation process. You'll understand how to start integrating the shadow and what's truly needed to reclaim control of your mind and life. If this resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. The link is in the pinned comment. Integrating the shadow isn't simple. It's not a symbolic gesture or a superficial mental decision. It's a difficult, painful, and transformative process. It's consciously walking into the forbidden territory of your soul, facing everything you've spent your life avoiding. The first step is brutal recognition. You must admit the darkness exists within you. No excuses, no rationalizations, no softening the impact. There's anger in you, envy, impulses to dominate, a desire for revenge, fear of failure, vanity, pride. But there's also repressed talent, forgotten courage, dormant potential. Denying any of these parts perpetuates the shadow's control. The second step is conscious observation. The shadow reveals itself in your most intense, disproportionate reactions. When you feel hatred for someone for no clear reason, explode over something small, or feel shame for a legitimate part of yourself. Those are the moments the shadow whispers. Learn to observe without judging or justifying. Just notice. Just acknowledge. The third step is compassionate acceptance. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean giving into it or justifying destructive behaviors. It means accepting that you're a complete human, made of light and darkness, strength and weakness. There's no true emotional maturity without this acceptance. Without it, you'll stay trapped in a sterile internal struggle, trying to amputate vital parts of yourself to fit an unreal image of perfection. But integrating the shadow alone isn't always possible. You may need support, dream analysis, deep self-reflection, the practice of self-observation. Working with a therapist trained in Jungian analytical psychology can be a powerful tool. A skilled therapist helps you navigate the layers of your unconscious, identify projection patterns, and recognize the self-destructive complexes keeping you stuck. The real alchemy happens when you transform what was once a source of shame into a source of strength. You realize your anger can become assertiveness, your vanity can be redirected to genuine self-care, your envy can reveal legitimate desires for growth. The shadow doesn't need to destroy you. When worked with, it can become the foundation of your true inner freedom. But don't be fooled. Integrating the shadow is an ongoing process. There's no finish line, no point where you become pure or enlightened. The human psyche is dynamic, and new shadows emerge throughout life. The goal isn't to eliminate darkness, but to keep awareness active, vigilant, integrated. When you start integrating your shadow, something extraordinary happens. Your relationship with the world changes. Emotional projection weakens, relationships become more genuine. You stop being a hostage to automatic reactions and start responding to the world from an inner center of strength and balance. In the next part, we'll dive into this visible transformation, how integrating the shadow not only changes you internally, but reflects a more balanced, authentic, and free personality to the world. When you begin integrating your shadow, the world around you changes. But the truth is, you're the one who changed. What once seemed unbearable in others becomes understandable. What triggered hatred, envy, repulsion, or judgment now sparks compassion, empathy, and discernment. You stop seeing enemies everywhere and start seeing humans as flawed and contradictory as you are. Emotional projection loses its power because the source of conflict has been recognized. You no longer need to unload your frustrations on others or justify your pain by attacking, judging, or rejecting the external world. You learn to hold the mirror to your own face and ask bravely, what does this reaction reveal about me? This transformation is profound. It's not just a change in behavior, it's a shift in how you perceive. The integrated shadow offers something the ego alone could never achieve: balance. Not a fragile balance like pretense or a tense one like repression, but a solid balance, like a rock that's weathered every inner storm. This spills into practical life. Your relationships improve because you no longer seek approval you once lacked. Others' criticism no longer wounds you because you're not a slave to the need to seem perfect. You become more authentic because you no longer need to hide who you are. You grow stronger because you stop wasting energy fighting yourself. This transformation doesn't go unnoticed. People around you feel the difference. Some draw closer, recognizing a more genuine, confident, vibrant presence. Others pull away, unable to handle someone who no longer plays unconscious games of projection and blame. This is part of the process. Integrating the shadow also purifies your environment. Jung taught us that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. True maturity comes from this brave confrontation with your soul. True strength emerges when you stop running from yourself. But there's one final piece to address: the real difficulty of walking this path alone. No matter how strong you are, there are moments when the shadow's weight is too heavy to carry without support. There are practical techniques and specific approaches to guide you in this process of self-discovery and integration with more safety and effectiveness. In the final part, we'll talk directly about this: how to seek help, strengthen your inner process, and most importantly, keep evolving without betraying your essence. You've spent your life hiding your flaws, trying to be what others expected, molding yourself to fit into shapes that were never meant for you. You've tried to silence impulses, feelings, and inner truths, believing this would make you stronger, more accepted, more right. But all this has only fed the shadow, strengthening what you feared. The truth is, there's no peace while you're at war with yourself. Integrating the shadow isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's about rescuing the parts of your soul you abandoned, not to let them rule you, but to know them, understand them, and bring them into your awareness. It's the opposite of repression. It's emotional responsibility. It's psychic maturity. It's inner freedom. You don't need to stay trapped in destructive patterns, reacting automatically to everything and everyone, feeling at the mercy of your emotions, or enslaved by toxic relationships that feed the illusion that the problem is always outside you. You don't need to feel fragmented, divided, or exhausted. There's a path, difficult, yes, but utterly transformative, to become someone who lives with authenticity, balance, and above all, awareness. But no one walks this path alone. If you feel ready to dive deeper, consider seeking therapeutic support. Jungian analytical psychology offers real, effective tools for this inner journey. A good therapist doesn't tell you what to do. They help you hear what you've avoided listening to, and that listening can change everything. Now, I want to hear from you. What did this video stir inside you? What part of your shadow whispered during this journey? Write it in the comments, not for me, but for yourself. Putting into words what was once just a feeling is already an act of integration. If this message touched something true within you, don't ignore it. This channel is more than a content space. It's a space of courage where uncomfortable truths are welcome, and you no longer need to pretend to be only light. Here, the darkness has a voice, and by listening to it, you rediscover your strength. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and don't miss the next video. It complements everything you've learned today. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. The shadow only rules those who refuse to see it, but you've started to look, and that changes everything. Thank you for watching, and until the next video.